A year ago, I uploaded my first video to this channel, the Low Poly Temple Fly-Through versions 1 and 2. These were some of the first random videos of Unreal Engine work that I had spent the past few months building and creating as an extra accomplishment to the assignment. The videos were originally created in February of 2024, so why upload them 2 months later? Simply for portfolio space. I have 500 gigabytes allocated to one of my portfolios, which, with the several animations created over time, the soon to be VFX short films, and game design evidence from our platformer, wasn't going to be substantial, especially with the number of screenshots I like to throw in all over the place to push my portfolio pieces. So, where better to put my recording evidence than on a channel, hence the birth of M446 on the 16th of April 2024. Obviously, I could have just left all 127 videos that I would release over time unlisted since you could still view them on my portfolio, so why didn't I? Because why not? Showing my tutors who looked at my portfolio how proud I was of these accomplishments and developments is one thing, but openly expressing how proud of them, no matter the quality, felt good. Today, I would like to run through some of my highlights that I felt show clear passion and development of skills across the now 160 plus videos from 2 whole years. Although I did do a reflection on a lot of this work already, this is less of a reflection and more of a celebratory compilation for a timeline of events showing just how far I have come. So without further ado, we shall start where it all began. One of my earliest recorded videos of the journey I had begun back in 2023 was the game's design starting point, where we were dropped into the Unreal Engine and told the basics of assigning materials, adding static meshes, and the brush tools. This was so early on that I remember very little about this piece, but it's the beginning of a journey, and that is one of the most important steps. I do remember thinking that the water material would act like water and was very disappointed when the abstract diving board didn't function all too well. Let's also not forget the terrible placement of the different meshes along the makeshift parkour layout. I think I still have this project somewhere, so it'd be really cool to come across that and look at it, as simple as it may be. VFX lessons were a great use of learning simple tricks and tools, especially with all the particles and other engine elements. One of my personal favorite tools I learned was the destructive mesh. Being able to take an object and shatter into any way was quite the spectacle. Destructive meshes became a go-to mechanic in several smaller projects, but would later serve a larger purpose in Tactics Team Tentacles, and still remains one of my favorite elements I've ever learned and used. This is one of my first animations I ever developed in college, which has a deeper root in a hobby I had from the previous 2 years. Secondary school often had some boring lessons, especially English, which would cause me to doodle in the little planners the school gave us every year. I drew little stick men fighting with weapons as a way to express my creativity. So for the first animation I created, this felt right. Although I never really finished the animation, it's a callback to something I loved doing. After the several weeks of engine work inside of VFX, we looked into the practical uses for film and TV, especially rotoscoping and green screen elements, which this video uses. Evidently, through a lot of my works, I love Star Wars, so making this small video was so fun. Green screening was a fun skill I learned, and one I would likewise further develop for one of my favorite UI elements in Tactics Team Tentacles. I never enjoyed a great deal of my 2D animation work, finding the art side to be very boring and uninteresting to me, which spawned the saga of videos called Super Businessman. Why are there so many versions? I simply kept being told it needed work, so I did, eventually ending up putting more effort into using my modeling, texturing, and Unreal Engine skills to enhance what is 3 seconds of refined animation. I didn't particularly focus on my animation skills here, but the experience it gave me was really helped later down the line. This assignment for games design was quite a significant point for me. It had strong skills in all areas, except animation, but none of them truly spoke out to me as the one. But during this project, the calling came. Designing the levels and programming the features for the player was super fun, and then building the levels to test an experiment was even more appealing, which when I discovered a video clip of myself from nearly 10 years ago, made me realize just what I wanted to do in games. And here is that little clip.
I want to be a games designer.
Certainly not a pivotal moment in my development, but a fun experience and lesson was the video Lightsaber Shuriken, showcasing the model I had been developing inside of Unreal Engine and how interesting it looked at the faster speeds of the rotating movement component. And this video was more of a test for what I wanted to achieve, which can be seen throughout the whole collection of the 3D weapon videos. Cinematics and renders are one of my favorite skills and pastimes with the assets I make, but later into my first year, I was introduced to mixing them all and fiddled with the character blueprints and animations inside the sequencer. This video never made it to my portfolio, but it's still a significant video for the use of animations, rendering, and also sockets to hold items. Pirate Wizard holds a special place in my heart, not only being the first big game I made, but my first collaborated project. As a team of five, we developed the crazy concept of what if a pirate who is also a wizard wanted to kill mutant fish creatures? This was my first big delve into games design, programming all of the game features as well as building the whole level and updating it as the features developed. This is one of my all-time favorite projects. I think is a culmination of skills and a starting point for developing games as a whole. Another significant moment was Composting Game, made just 1 week after Pirate Wizard. This was created as a social action project intended to inform about composting, which later expanded into a small building game to add some further fun to the game. I love how much simpler but still enjoyable this experience was and how the learning didn't stop with learning arrays, game modes, and further developing user interfaces. Composting Game at the time had one of my favorite UI elements, such as the crafting bench UI, which had all the little tabs and all the images, as well as using my rendering skills to provide the images to show off what you would be building. By this point, summer had rolled around, and my passion didn't slow, so I spent some time learning about procedural dungeons and how that could work with an archaeology game. I loved how technical and different this project was, teaching me about spawning actors, the first person template, and how significant arrows can be inside of blueprints. It's got one of my favorite mechanics of the game, being able to watch the dungeons generate itself and create itself, and even when it didn't manage to generate a dungeon, it would just destroy itself and completely rebuild itself. It was a really fascinating thing to work on, and I would absolutely love to revisit it because I never continued the project. But I think its purpose could be used in other projects I personally want to explore. This one-off video was evidence toward the role applications we needed for the upcoming game project Tactics Teen Tentacles, which would provide us why we deserved the role we wanted. At the time, I was deep into Skyrim again, so I used the aesthetics heavily in this creation, even leaning a little into Oblivion as well. I learned a great deal here too, importance of optimization through lighting, basic objectives, and more UI elements. Finally, the big one. Tactics Tea and Tentacles is the big game project that has been spanning the past 5 months. This project is so significant to my development, being the joining of all my previous game work and even improving and pushing my knowledge even further. Learning how to make mini-maps, compass bars, and even making a cell shader to enhance the aesthetic of this game. Although I only have the alpha to show, the development hasn't stopped from there, focusing on enhancing the environment and the performance as of the beta stage. This is a big project I'm really happy with and looking forward to finalizing very soon. As mentioned in the destructive mesh and X-Wing sections, a lot of what I learned in there later was used in Tactics Teen Tentacles. So the destructive mesh made its appearance as a destructive element for the spaceport wall during the night phase, which is a really fun little feature that me and another person on my team worked on. And in the X-Wing video, I mentioned how we use green screen for that, which I used as a part of the pause and inventory menu to have the Martian all in green spinning around the UI using a rotating movement, as well as not necessarily a green screen but more a blue screen to keep the green design of the Martian. As I've mentioned, this project is the final one that I have been working on as of recently, and my final college project. I'm really, really proud of this project because, like I say, it's a real joining of everything I've learned, especially now over a spanning of 2 years. It definitely brings a lot of them things together, as well as enhancing so much on those skills and even refining the information that I knew, especially with the green screen. I learned a different technique that helped provide better results, which, although it's not perfect, still looks pretty decent. I will forever be happy with this project, no matter what. It will also always be the project that I think of as one of my best games I did in the first year of actual game development. It's really high up there because of how much time and how much effort's gone into this, and just how much fun is inside of this. Um, and with that, 2 years of development of skills, knowledge, and games has been summed up with some of the most significant works I've made. I've loved everything I've created. They're all significant in some way to where I have got to, and will be a constant reminder to myself of one simple task: research. A lot of this knowledge wasn't taught to me in college. It was something I looked into myself and learned myself. And even now, that hasn't stopped. Recently, I looked into sculpting and the significance of high poly modeling, which, although wasn't a perfect first attempt, had some good results. I also looked into data tables and definitely want to develop them into a future project alongside game tag variables to streamline the development of games. Finally, looking into how a gamepad controller can be used inside of a UI and not just relying on keyboard and mouse input like Tactics T and Tentacles. However, these results are something to be shown in the future. But now, I leave with the hope that this inspires people to create and learn similarly to myself. This knowledge is free and accessible to anyone. With enough motivation and care, anyone can do this. Thank you for listening.